I woke up because of the voices. Low, conspiratorial, vibrating through the thin wall between my bedroom and the hallway. At first, I thought I was dreaming, drifting somewhere between the heavy fog of grief and the blurred remains of sleep. But then I heard my name. Not lovingly, not gently, not even neutrally. It was said the way someone discusses a tool they intend to use. "Do not worry about her," Benjamin whispered. "She does not even check the details." I stopped breathing entirely. My son's voice, my only child, the person I had loved with a devotion so complete it sometimes frightened even me. I held still, muscles tense beneath the blanket, afraid the slightest rustle would expose that I was awake. Beside his voice, another responded. Kurt, a friend of his from childhood, who had grown into the sort of man who always smelled like desperation and poor decisions. "She has a lot left, right?" Kurt asked. "With your father gone, it should cover it." Benjamin exhaled. "She has enough to pay everything I owe, but if I take too much, she will notice. Small amounts, little by little, she will never pay attention. Old people never do." My chest tightened as if someone had wrapped cold wire around my ribs. They were talking about me. They were talking about my money. They were talking about stealing. And before the shock even fully settled, something else happened, something almost mechanical, like a reflex of survival. Their whispers became clearer, sharper, as if my mind were tuning in to the frequency of betrayal. "When will you take the next piece?" Kurt asked. "Soon," Benjamin said. The last transfer went smooth. She did not ask a thing. I just need to keep up the act, checking in on her, making her feel like she is not alone. The more she trusts me, the easier this will be. Something inside me fractured. It did not shatter loudly. It cracked with a quiet, decisive certainty, like a thin layer of ice breaking underfoot. Right then I realized you can live 70 years on this earth and still be blindsided in the most ordinary of moments. Half asleep in bed, listening to your own child plan how to drain you dry. I pulled the blanket up to my chin and closed my eyes as tightly as I could, hoping, irrationally, that the darkness behind my eyelids would protect me. I heard footsteps, a door closing, silence, and then something equally strange happened. I felt myself detach, completely, as if I had stepped outside my own body and become a witness to my own undoing. I remember thinking, absurdly, almost hysterically, if anyone is listening to this story right now, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Maybe this will help someone else who has trusted too much for too long. I had no audience then, of course, but looking back, that instinct makes sense. Sometimes pain is so excruciating that the mind seeks refuge in narration, turning agony into story, story into distance, distance into survival. I opened my eyes again. The ceiling looked grainy in the dim light. My breath came in shallow waves, each one colder than the last. And somewhere deep inside me, I felt the first spark of something unfamiliar. Not rage, not grief, not even fear. Clarity. The kind of clarity that comes only when a lifetime of softness finally meets its limit. To understand the weight of that moment, you need to know who I was before that night. My name is Sarah Kyle. I am 67 years old, recently widowed, and until a few months ago, I believed my life had ended alongside my husband's. John was my anchor, my calm, my ordinary magic. He was the type of man who checked expiration dates obsessively, ironed his own shirts, and always double-knotted his shoelaces. He never rushed, never raised his voice, never used the last of the milk without telling me. Loving him was easy, losing him was shattering. When he died, I drifted through our house like a ghost made of good intentions and empty hands. I slept on his side of the bed the first week. Then I stopped sleeping entirely. I ate only when Susan forced me to. I let bills pile up on the kitchen counter, not out of negligence, but because I could not bear to see his handwriting on anything. Recipes, reminders, the grocery list he taped to the fridge. Benjamin moved in 2 weeks later. At first I was grateful, then relieved, then dependent. It never crossed my mind to question his sudden generosity. He told me he wanted to be there for me. That grief was too heavy to carry alone, that he would handle things. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my son, but grief-plastered eyes cannot see manipulation. And a mother's heart, stretched over decades of sacrifice, will always default to trust. Benjamin cooked dinners for us. He carried laundry baskets. He refilled my prescriptions. He sat beside me on the porch, pretending to care as I talked about memories of John. He played the role of a devoted son so convincingly that even I, who gave birth to him, could not see the performance underneath. But that night, hearing him confess everything to Kurt, I saw the truth with blinding clarity. The performances, the timing, the kindness that always came with a strange, subtle urgency. The way he always volunteered to help with online banking. The way he discouraged me from looking at statements because it is too stressful for you right now, Mom. He had been grooming me, slowly, carefully, expertly. And I had let him, willingly, because that is what love does when it is misdirected. It blinds, it binds, and it betrays. I got out of bed like someone twice my age. My hands shook as I grabbed my old robe, the one with fraying sleeves and soft fabric worn thin by decades of use. I walked into the hallway, expecting the air to feel heavy, but it felt strangely light, like a world that had finally stopped pretending. In the kitchen, I turned on the small lamp by the coffee maker. Its warm glow spilled across the marble counter where I had sliced fruit for Benjamin just the day before, wanting to nurture him the same way I always had. I stood there, thinking. Then something inside me clicked into place. Not loudly, not theatrically, quietly, like a lock turning. I sat down at the table and pulled out the shoebox where John used to keep old receipts and warranty papers. Inside it, beneath layers of envelopes, I found what I needed, a folder with every account number, password, and document connected to our investments. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop. It took me 20 minutes to gather the courage to log in, another 5 minutes to steady my breath. And then the screen illuminated the truth. Transfer after transfer. Small amounts. Consistent. Just low enough to slip under the radar of someone drowning in grief. My son had been siphoning money like a man scooping water from a sinking boat, frantic, quiet, desperate. I scrolled through the transactions, each one a needle, each one proof, each one a betrayal so sharp it might have drawn blood if betrayal had edges. Then I reached the most recent withdrawal, made only hours before. Seeing the timestamp shattered me. He had stolen from me while making me tea, while telling me to rest, while brushing a stray hair from my shoulder and calling me Mom. The cruelty was not in the theft. The cruelty was in the tenderness used to camouflage it. Grief settled heavily on my chest. Not grief for the money. Money can be earned, saved, lost, regained. Grief for the illusion of who I thought my son was. I felt that version of him die quietly inside me. The next morning, I prepared breakfast the same way I always did. Scrambled eggs with a little dill. Toast lightly buttered. Strawberries sliced neatly, just the way he liked. I moved through the motions with mechanical precision, as though performing one final ritual before burying the part of myself that had tolerated too much. Benjamin walked in with a yawn, hair messy, lips curved into a lazy smile. "Morning, Mom," he said, kissing my cheek. The kiss lingered like a stain. I swallowed the urge to wipe it away. "Good morning," I replied. My voice sounded normal. Too normal. That frightened me. He sat down, scrolling through his phone with a casualness that made me want to scream. People should not look so relaxed while standing at the edge of their own downfall. But Benjamin always had a talent for being oblivious. "I'm thinking about running some errands today," he said. "Maybe I'll grab lunch out? Want anything while I'm gone?" Such kindness, such courtesy, such dedicated deception. "No," I said, "I will be fine." I placed his plate in front of him. His fork clinked lightly as he began to eat. I stared at him, at the son I had raised, at the man I had unknowingly enabled, at the child who had once held my finger with his whole tiny hand and cried when I left the room. I waited for the grief to swallow me whole. It didn't. Something else had begun to take root inside me instead. Resolve. Cold, clear, lucid resolve. The kind you feel when you finally stop drowning. By noon, I had gathered screenshots, statements, account logs, printouts, everything I needed. But evidence alone was not enough. Not for the ending I intended. I needed a witness, a confidante, an ally. I needed Susan. My sister answered the phone on the second ring. Her voice was warm and bright in a way mine could never be. "Sarah, are you all right?" "No," I said truthfully. "Can you come over now?" "I am on my way." Within 20 minutes, she was sitting across from me as I pushed the folder toward her. She opened it. Her face changed slowly, confusion, disbelief, then a simmering fury only a sister can feel on your behalf. "Oh, Sarah, I heard him last night," I whispered. "He was talking to Kurt." She closed her eyes like she was absorbing the blow herself. "You do not deserve this," she said. "Not after everything." I did not realize I was crying until she reached out and wiped a tear from my cheek. "Tell me what you want to do," she said. And for the first time in months, I felt like breathing. Susan sat quietly for a long moment after reading the documents, as if she were weighing not only the facts, but the years that had led us to this point. The kitchen felt impossibly still, holding its breath around us. I waited for her reaction as though waiting for a verdict that might determine the rest of my life. Finally, she closed the folder gently, almost ceremonially, and looked at me with an expression that held sorrow and steel in equal measure. Sarah, she said softly, "this did not start last night." Her words cut through me. She was right. The betrayal was recent, but the pattern was old, older than either of us wanted to admit. "I should have seen it sooner," I whispered. "All the little things, the attitude, the excuses, the way he always needed something." "No," she said firmly. "Do not turn this against yourself. You saw what you were ready to see, and now you see everything." She reached out and took my hands in hers, grounding me with that familiar warmth only a sister can give. "Listen to me," Susan continued. "What he did was wrong. He used your grief as a cover for his desperation. You cannot fix that kind of choice, but you can respond to it." I nodded, though my throat tightened with a mixture of shame and clarity. "I just keep thinking." My voice broke. "How did we get here? How did he become this person?" She squeezed my hands. "People do not become lost all at once. They drift. They deny. They avoid consequences until consequences become someone else's burden. You carried him longer than most would have, longer than you should have." Her honesty hurt, but it was the kind of hurt that opens a wound so it can finally heal. "Now," she said, leaning back, "the question is not what happened. It is what you intend to do." That was the moment the fear inside me shifted, subtly but unmistakably, into intention. I opened the folder again, but this time not as a grieving mother or a betrayed widow. I opened it like evidence, like a blueprint, like the beginning of a strategy. "I want to confront him," I said, "but not blindly. I want to do it right." "You will," she said, "but you need more than anger and proof. You need leverage." I frowned. "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that makes him understand you are not bluffing," she replied. "The kind that shows you have choices, options, power." That word, power, felt strange in my ears, like clothing I had never worn before, but it also felt right, as if some buried part of me recognized it. Susan pulled out her phone. "First, let us secure everything. Screenshots, backups, duplicates. If he gets nervous or suspicious, you cannot risk him deleting anything." Her preparedness impressed me. She moved with calm precision, the kind you see in someone who has watched people unravel before, and learned exactly how to keep the truth intact. We created digital copies, stored them in multiple locations, password protected them, and printed an additional set to keep off-site. Every action felt like laying down another brick in the foundation of a plan I was just beginning to understand. Then Susan looked at me, tilting her head slightly. "There is something else," she said. "Something you need to consider." "What is that?" "His debt," she answered. "We already know he owes money, and that the men he owes it to are not patient. If you confront him without a plan, he might lash out, or worse, panic. You cannot afford chaos." A chill ran down my spine. She was right. Desperate people make reckless decisions, and Benjamin, frightened and cornered, could become unpredictable. "So," I said slowly, "what do you suggest?" "We stabilize the danger," she replied. "Not for him. Let him deal with the consequences. But for you, you make a calculated move, something small enough that it does not rescue him, but large enough that it removes immediate threats." I breathed deeply. "The overdue installments." "Yes," she said. "Only those, nothing more." It was startling how logical it sounded coming from her mouth. A clean, balanced approach. A line drawn with intention. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "And then, when he no longer has the shield of crisis to hide behind, you confront him. Not as a mother begging for the truth, but as a woman demanding answers. A woman who knows exactly what he did, how he did it, and what she will do if he does not take responsibility." For the first time in weeks, my heartbeat steadied. "I can do that," I said. "You can," she replied, smiling softly, "and you will." We spent the next hour planning the conversation, not the emotional parts, but the structure of it. The points I would present, the proof I would show him, the lines I would not let him cross, the consequences I would state clearly. It felt surreal, preparing myself to confront my own son, but there was a quiet strength growing inside me, slow, steady, inevitable. Susan stood to leave. "Call me after you speak to him, no matter how it goes." I nodded, walking her to the door. As she hugged me goodbye, she whispered, "You are stronger than you think. He just forgot who you were. Now it is time for him to remember." When she drove away, I closed the door and leaned against it, letting the silence of the house settle around me like armor. For the first time since John died, the quiet did not feel like grief. It felt like preparation. It felt like a woman ready to reclaim her life. It felt like the beginning of my counterattack. The house felt unnaturally calm the next morning, as if the walls themselves were waiting for what would happen. I moved slowly, with the quiet determination of someone stepping into the final act of a play she never wanted to perform, but had rehearsed her entire life without knowing it. The folder lay on the dining table, each page neatly arranged, every screenshot printed and clipped together. I had checked the evidence 3 times since waking up. I was not nervous. Not anymore. I felt something closer to inevitability. Benjamin walked into the kitchen rubbing his eyes, the same way he had done as a little boy, but the innocence that gesture once held no longer touched me. He smiled faintly, poured himself a cup of coffee, and leaned against the counter as though his world were stable, unquestioned, safe. "Morning, Mom?" he said. This time I did not return the smile. "Sit down," I told him. The firmness in my voice surprised even me. He blinked. "What's going on?" "Sit," I repeated. He obeyed, looking at me with an almost theatrical confusion, as though preparing to charm his way out of something he sensed but could not yet name. I placed the folder in front of him. "Open it," he hesitated. "What is this?" "Proof," I said, "of what you have been doing." His eyes flicked down to the papers. For a moment, he did not move. Then he opened the folder and began flipping through. I watched the muscles in his face shift, small twitches that revealed panic he tried desperately to hide. "Mom, I can explain." "No," I interrupted, my voice steady. "You can tell me why, but you cannot explain it. There is no explanation that makes this acceptable." He swallowed hard. I had no choice." "You had countless choices," I said. "You did not choose honesty. You did not choose responsibility. You did not choose to come to me and say, 'Mom, I am drowning. Help me understand what to do.' You chose secrecy, theft, manipulation. You chose to use my grief as cover." His face flushed a deep, guilty red. "I was scared. Those men. I know who they are," I cut in. "And I know you were behind on payments. I covered only the overdue installments. The rest is yours to deal with." He looked up sharply. You paid something?" "I paid," I said coldly, "just enough for the threats to stop, not enough for you to escape consequences." His jaw tightened. "Why would you do that? Why would you get involved at all if—" "Because I refuse to let violence touch this house," I said. "But I also refuse to rescue you anymore." Something broke in his expression. He slammed the folder closed. "You cannot just leave me hanging like this." I leaned forward, meeting his gaze with a calm I had never possessed before. Grief stripped me raw and rebuilt me. "I'm not leaving you hanging, Benjamin. I am letting you stand. For the first time in your life." He stood abruptly. "I cannot believe you're doing this to me." I rose too. "No," I said softly. "You did this to yourself." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air felt charged, brittle, like a storm forming between two people who used to love each other but no longer recognized the faces they wore. Then I spoke the words I knew would end everything. "You must leave this house today." His eyes widened. "You're kicking me out?" "Yes." "You cannot be serious." "I am," I said. "And if you refuse, I will take all of this to the police. Every transfer, every login, every message, every conversation." For the first time, pure fear flickered through him. A childish fear, almost feral. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "I would," I said, "and I will." He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. Then he looked away, jaw clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. "I will go," he said finally, "but do not expect me to come back." His words were meant to wound. Instead, they freed me. "I will not expect anything from you, Benjamin," I said. "Expectation is a luxury I no longer afford." He packed in silence. When the front door closed behind him, the house exhaled, and so did I. For the first time since John died, I felt something close to space, an opening, a possibility, a fragile beginning. But endings, even necessary ones, ache. When dusk settled, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the empty chair across from me, the one where Benjamin had eaten breakfast just hours earlier. I felt grief settle inside my chest, not the sharp grief of betrayal, but the soft, tired grief of letting go of the version of someone you loved more than yourself. I cried, not because he left, but because I finally accepted that he had never truly been with me at all. When the tears dried, something remarkable happened. I did not feel hollow. I felt ready. The next morning, I visited Susan. She opened the door before I could even knock fully, pulling me into a hug so tight it felt like she had been holding her breath for me. "It's done," I told her. "I am proud of you," she said. We sat at her dining table, sunlight pouring across the wood grain, warming everything it touched. She made tea the way she always had, too strong for most people, but exactly right for me. "What now?" she asked. "I do not know," I admitted. "I have not known anything for months." She tilted her head. "Maybe that is the point. Maybe you get to rediscover who you are." I smiled weakly. "At 67? "At 67, she said firmly. "And do not you dare act like that is too late. You still quote poems from memory. You still see stories in everything. You still turn pain into meaning. You just forgot you know how." The memory of John's voice drifted through my mind. His gentle encouragement whenever I wrote something. His belief in me long before I believed in myself. "I used to love writing," I murmured. "You still do," she corrected. "You have simply been too busy surviving to remember." She stood abruptly and walked to her home office. When she returned, she held a thin stack of blank pages. "Write," she said simply. "Anything, everything. Start with this moment. Start with yesterday. Start with what you wish someone had told you when you were younger." I stared at the pages. They felt intimidating and inviting all at once. "What would I even write about?" I asked. She smiled gently. "Women like you. Women like us. Women who carry entire worlds quietly until someone mistakes our silence for weakness." Her words hit something inside my chest that had not been touched in years. Maybe decades. "Try," she said softly. "Just try." So I did. The first essay I wrote was messy and raw. My handwriting shook. My thoughts wandered. But there was truth in it. Truth I had not spoken aloud. Truth I had not dared name. I wrote about loneliness, about grief, about the betrayal that had cracked me open and forced me to rebuild, about the danger of loving without boundaries, about the quiet dignity of reclaiming yourself. I showed Susan the pages. Her eyes softened as she read. "Sarah," she whispered, "this is beautiful." "It is a mess," I said. "It is beautiful," she repeated, "and I want to publish it." My breath caught. "Publish? Where?" "In the column," she said. "My editor is always looking for authentic voices, stories that reach people, stories that help women feel less alone." I shook my head. "Who would want to read something from me?" "Every woman who has ever felt invisible," she replied, "and that is most of us." I hesitated. Then I nodded. "Send it." The reaction was immediate. Emails, comments, letters. Women wrote things like, "I felt seen for the first time in years. You put into words what I never could. I needed this. I needed to know I was not the only one." Their honesty filled something inside me that had been empty for too long. I wrote again and again and again. Each time the responses grew. A silent community formed, made of women who had been carrying unspoken weight, suddenly finding a voice that mirrored their own. I was not healing alone anymore. I was healing with them. Writing became my anchor, my compass, my new reason to wake up in the morning. I no longer drifted. I no longer folded myself into smaller shapes for someone else. I no longer apologized for taking up space. I had purpose. I had direction. I had myself. 3 months passed before Benjamin reached out. He called first. I let it ring. He texted. I did not respond. Then one afternoon, he knocked on my door. When I opened it, he looked older, not physically, emotionally. His shoulders slumped, his eyes tired, his hands empty. "Mom," he said, voice cracking, "please, can we talk?" I stood in the doorway for a long moment. Then I opened the door wider. He stepped inside slowly, like someone entering sacred ground. "I got a job," he said. "I have been working double shifts. I am paying everything I owe. I have not missed a payment." I nodded, but remained silent. He swallowed. "I am sorry for everything. I was a coward. I was selfish. I thought you would always save me." That was the problem, I said gently. I did. He looked down, shame radiating off him in waves. I want to be better. I am trying. I can see that. He wiped his eyes. Can you forgive me? I already did, I said. But I will not rescue you again, and I will not go back to who I was. We will have a relationship, but with boundaries. He nodded through tears. I understand. We sat together for a while, mother and son, broken and mending, separate but connected. Not by dependence, not by fear, but by truth. It was enough. I walk through my home differently now. Not like a woman haunted by absence, but like a woman reclaimed by purpose. My nights are quiet, but never lonely. My mornings are full, not of chores or obligations, but of words. I drink my coffee slowly, savoring it, unpressured, unhurried. I spend afternoons answering letters from women who read my column, women who remind me that pain shared is pain diminished. My life is smaller in some ways, but richer in every way that matters. I lost illusions. I lost the version of motherhood I clung to. I lost the woman who accepted crumbs and called it love. But I found myself. And in the end, that was the greatest inheritance of all. If you have ever trusted too much, given too much, forgiven too much, tell me in the comments below. What would you have done in my place, and where are you listening from? Your stories matter. Your voice matters. If this story touched you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you know. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings, until next time.